G'day guys, Socket here. Welcome to 2026 and a big happy new year's to everybody here on the Patreon channel. It's New Year's Day here in Australia, and today we're going to cover off the round 4 results of our virtual car audio tuning exercise. But before that, I just want to say a great big welcome to Joseph and Wagner, who have recently joined the Patreon family. So welcome aboard, guys. I hope you enjoy your time here and the content and all the stuff. But today, as always, it's Friday, and we're going to do the round 4 results, and in this case round 4 is all to do with EQ. So thank you to everybody who sent their results through. As always, I'm going to sort of summarize up the group results at the end, but you know, everybody did a pretty good job. Some people used more EQ bands than others, but that's, you know, all perfectly fine, because EQ is not an exact science. You are just using electrical filters to get the shape of the speaker response to acoustically follow the house curves that we've set up in round 3. And yeah, there's lots of different ways to do this. So if you don't exactly use the same filter or the same number of filters or whatever, don't worry too much about it. It's all about the final speaker response that you end up with. That's the most important part. The technique is just the technique, and yeah, lots of different ways of people ending up at the same place. So if you don't get the exact same results as I get in the results tutorial, don't stress about it at all. Alright, so with all of that said, let's jump on in. Let's go into REW, and I'll take you through how I went about EQing these set of speakers. Okay, so here we are back in REW, and we've loaded up all the round 3 results. And so if we start off, we've got all of the full range measures that we did back in round 1. So the tweeters, the mids, the mid bass, the front fills, the rear fills, the front sub and the rear sub. And we're going to use these full range measures as we do our EQ work, when we're, you know, trying to shape the speaker response before we EQ our speaker response down to the target curve. So if you're doing your own tune on your own car, remember that you'll need a set of full range measures without any crossovers in them to do the EQ work properly. So they're all the full range measures. We've also got a copy of our house curve and our second house curve set 12 dB lower for our front fills and rear fills. But of course, if you're not using front or rear fills, then you don't need that second house curve. But you know, the overarching house curve set at our target line of 73, which we did back in I think it was round 2 from memory. And then of course we have all of our crossovers and things that we set up: our tweeters, our mids, our left and right mid bass, our front fills, our rear fills, and of course our subs, which we did back in round 3. And so that's all fine, and they're kind of all lined up against the house curves. Yep, kind of. Or certainly level matched against our house curves. And then, of course, we created our own target house curves, which provides almost like a scaffolding for our tune. Okay, so there's all the individual house curves that we created, and now in round 4 we're going to do the EQ work. And essentially what we're planning to do is, if I just take this tweeter house curve and I take I don't know, this right tweeter, we're going to want to cut and boost the response of this speaker to acoustically line up with this brown house curve line. So what do I mean by acoustically? In the DSP, so if we pop over to the DSP for a moment and have a look, whenever we are using crossovers like a Linkwitz Riley 24 dB 3000 Hz crossover, or you know, on our mids, these are what we call electrical filters, right? So you know, I can change the slope, or you know, and I can add some EQ or this type of stuff. Now this is what we call electrical filters, and it is this is what we call the electrical response of a speaker, right? So this setting here is the electrical response applied to my right mid bass. The electrical response will shape how this speaker plays and how it measures, right? That's why we add EQ to, manipulate how the speaker sounds when it plays. And of course, when we measure that, we get a response that looks like this, and this is what we call the acoustical response. So the acoustical response is basically the result of all the electrical filters that we apply. And what's important, and I talk about this during the tutorial, the electrical filters that we use is not important. What is important is the acoustical response. So we want the speaker's acoustical response to match this house curve. What electrical filters that we use to do it is less important, right? So yeah, that's why we'll end up with crazy crossovers and things like this during the EQ process, but you don't need to worry about that because we're using those filters to achieve a certain acoustical crossover. Now, the other major tip that I talk about in the tutorial is that we want to be able to push the response of the speaker outside the target curve so that when we use the auto EQ tool in REW, it will cut and boost the response back to this target line, right? And so yeah, you don't want, for example, let me just do, what is this? This is the measurement 16. I'm just going to quickly go into the EQ tool, measurement 16, and I'm going to quickly just throw in a little filter here. 24 dB at, I don't know, let's call it 3000, something like that. And I'm going to generate measurement from predicted. This is just for illustrative purpose only, folks, just to show you what I mean. So I can close all that down again. And so if you see this orange line here, okay, you can see that it's well and truly underneath the brown target curve. REW is never going to be able to boost all of that up, right? So what you want to do is basically, as we had it here before, you want the response of the speaker as close to the target line or beyond the target line. That's the first step before you go and do your auto EQ work, right? And I'll walk through. I've walked through all of that in the tutorial, but I'm going to walk through how I've done these particular measurements here in today's results tutorial. Okie doke, so we've got all of the measurements that we're going to need to start. So we're going to get started. I'm going to work through the tweeters, mids, mid bass, all of that stuff one by one. And finish up with the front fill and the rear fills. So let's get on and start with the tweeters. All right then, so we are going to just pull up the tweeter measurement, which is measurement 15. We're going to start with the left tweeter. And as we can see, most of it is already on the outside of the target curve, a little bit here and a little bit there, which is a little bit low. But we don't have the slope of the speaker sort of underneath the house curve. If we did, we'd have to sort of play around with the crossover level. So we can probably just move straight ahead and see if we can EQ this tweeter. So we're going to select the left tweeter measurement because the EQ window is locked to, the EQ tool is locked to the measurement that we select here on the left hand side. So if I select this one and I clicked the EQ tool, it's going to bring up the measurement 15, the left tweeter with the crossover in it, which is the one we want to work on. So we don't need this bottom window, we can get rid of that, and we want these three things ticked. This is the actual measurement, this is the predicted measurement which will change as we add EQ filters, and this is our house curve or the target line that we're working to. So over here all the controls for our EQ tool. The first thing we want to check is generic. So there are different modes that we can use. There is generic. You can enter in Audio-Tech Fisher and then choose your particular DSP. So mine's got 30 bands or 32 bands of EQ, or you can have generic and use what we call configurable PEQ, where you can change things like the number of filters and the frequency range and a whole bunch of stuff if you want to, right? And so the major problem is that if you choose configurable or you choose Audio-Tech Fisher or your manufacturer's DSP, you have limitations on this EQ tool. So with the Audio-Tech Fisher selected, I get my 30 bands of EQ, but I can only put in EQ bands and low shelf and high shelf filters. I can't put in or simulate crossovers. And the same applies when I'm using this configurable PEQ tool, where I want to apply some changes. Same thing applies. I have limited number of options that I can use for doing EQ, and I can't do any crossover simulating. Right? To do that, I need to be in generic, and when I'm in generic, it gives me all of the various filters that I can use, like all passes, high shelves, and EQ filters, or peaking filters that they're called here. And if I slide all the way to the end, I can put in crossovers 1 and 2 for low pass, high pass, and things like that, which we might come to use a little bit later. So generally, I use the generic settings when I want to do crossover simulations, and if I want to do less than 20 EQ bands, because generic only has 20 EQ bands, right? And if I want to use more than 20 and I'm not worried about simulating crossovers, then I'll switch it to Audio-Tech Fisher and select my 30 bands of EQ, right? So it really depends. So in this case, I'm not using any crossover stuff. I'm just using the Audio-Tech Fisher. So I don't need to simulate any crossovers, so I don't need to use generic. I can just use the Audio-Tech Fisher to give my full 30 bands of EQ. Alright, sorry, that was a very long-winded explanation, but I'll get this out of the way early because it's our first EQ measurement. Second thing I need to do is just make sure that this is all in 1/6 resolution. You can see this down here on the measurement. It is 1/6, 1/6. But if you want to check where there are peaks and dips and things like that, you can change the smoothing over here, and now you'll be able to see all the sort of peaks and dips and things like that. So there's a big cancellation there, big deep dip. Another couple here, another one here. They normally don't respond well to EQ work, so if you have one of these, there's not much you can do. But you want to do all your work in 1/6 or less, so that you don't use too many EQ bands and run out of EQ bands. So 1/6 I find is a really good balance. Alright, so next menu is the target setting. So this is the setting for your house curve, or your target line I should say. And so this will always be the same, or for speaker pairs. So with the tweeter we want the 3000 Hertz LR4. If we go into the DSP, I think that's what we set. Yes, 3000 Linkwitz Riley 24 dB. So that is correct, and we have no low pass, right? So remembering that a high pass filter is something that allows frequencies higher than the house curve to be played, but doesn't allow anything below it to be played, right? So that's why it allows high pass. That's why it's called high pass, right? But there is no low pass. It just goes off to infinity. This next part is the room curve. So when we go and look at our REW and we look at the house curve that we set up, which is measurement 13, it's flat all the way to 250 Hertz, and then it has a 6 dB per octave rise through to 20 Hertz, which is quite aggressive. A normal tune would be maybe 3 or 4. 6 is quite a bassy low end rise, and you'll see why that matters a little bit later. But if we go back into the EQ section, we want to make sure that these settings reflect that. So 250 low frequency rise, 6 dB per octave, no high frequency fall or cut. That's why the slope is set to 0, and then our target line, as we remember, is set to 73, right? That's the flat section there. So for the tweeters, we've got a target line of 73, and there's our little house curve there as well. So 73 is plugged in. That means our house curve is properly set, and our house curve is properly set at this crossover of 3000 Linkowitz-Riley 24 dB slope, and our low end rise, which is not going to affect the tweeter too much until you get way down here, and you'll see the little bump at 250, but it's largely not going to affect the tweeter response at all. Now, the last thing I just want to talk about is just how far down this slope you need to EQ. As I talk about in some of the tutorials, that we're really interested in the top 30 dB. So starting at 72, the most critical part to get right and EQ correctly is down to 10 dB down, down to here somewhere. That's critical. Then very important is the next 10 dB. Down to here. That's very important to get right, and then beyond that, another 10 dB. That's 30 dB down now. That's important to get right too. So all through there, try to get it as good as possible. But beyond that, certainly if you can get it to follow the house curve, fabulous. But it's a law of diminishing returns, right? So don't be too stressed if this way down here, 70 or 80 dB down is not following the curve any longer, because it has such a small effect on the overall response. It's buried way down here, 70 decibels down, right, or 60 decibels down. So don't stress about it. It's this top 30 or 40 dB that you want to kind of get right. Okie doke, so we have all of this set correctly now. We're now going into the filter tasks. So the first thing is the match range. This will be the frequency that you want to do your EQ work for. We're not going to EQ work, do this down at 40. We want to sort of pick, a mark, somewhere, where do we say, 30 or 40 down. So at best, it's probably going to be down here somewhere about 750, but if we can try to do it down even lower. But so let's say 600 would be a good starting spot. So we type in 600. Now we don't want the system to EQ this bit. That's not really going to work. So we'd probably put in our match range here at maybe 15,000. There's no point sort of going all the way to 20,000 and trying to waste EQ bands on this stuff. It's simply not going to lift it up. And then of course we want the maximum amount of boost to be 6, and this flatness target at 1. That means that it's going to try to aim to be at least 1 decibel either side of this line if it can. Turn off these allow low shelf and high shelf filters. You can use them for subs and tweeters the way we're looking at them now, but I tend to just leave them off, and I tend to leave these two things ticked, and I explain why in the tutorials. But we're kind of ready to go. We could do some preliminary work by sort of tweaking this a little bit and seeing if but I'm just going to see how REW handles it without doing some pre-work. So we're just going to hit match response to target and let REW do its thing. It's taking a little while. Okay, so if we just turn off the green line, we'll see just exactly what REW did. So here we are following the red line down here. So it's done a pretty good job. Hasn't sort of got that one. This bottom end is rolling off a little. when we compare the green. So what is going on here? Well, it's EQ'd all of this stuff all the way down to 600 pretty well. You can see there's a bit of a, that little dip here has shown up here. My guess is it's probably a cancellation. Yep, there's some pretty deep dips around there. So, yep, that's not unexpected. As all of this gets pulled down, of course, these little dips will also get pulled down as well. So that's why we've got this little ripple here. But as I said, it's at 38 versus 70. It's 40, 38 dB or something down below the the peak. So it's probably not going to really matter. I probably wouldn't worry too much about it. And then if we look at these other areas, this green dip here has kind of been corrected. This one here has got worse because we've pulled these two down, and it's sort of pulled that down as well. And then of course, this low end, which was rolling off, really wasn't playing much beyond 13,000. It's pulled all this down as well. So we're probably not too bad with that. We've got a few EQ filters we can now use, and just to do some manual corrections as well. So let's have a look. How many bands have we got left? We've got all of these over here. Let me just close this window up a little bit so we can see them a bit better. So what are we going to do? I think first of all we'll see if we can just see if we can fix this little bump here. So that's at 7,160. I'm going to start from the end here. PK is a peaking filter, but we commonly call it an EQ filter. So we're going to throw one in there at 7,160, and I'm going to give it maybe a 4 dB boost, and pretty sharp, because I don't necessarily want it to affect a lot of other frequencies around it. So that looks pretty good. What's that? That's 74 versus 73. So maybe that's like a 1 dB, 1 and a bit dB bump. I'm not going to worry too much about that. But what I want to do is try to lift this low end a little bit. So we can use what we call, well, first of all, I could use a EQ filter and see if I can push all of this up, or I can use a shelf filter. All right, but let's start with an EQ filter first. We kind of want to sort of push it up at this end and raise all that up. So maybe I'm going to put one in at 13,000. Okay. I'm going to give it, so what's that sitting at the moment? 70, 72. Aiming for 73, so maybe I'll give it a 2, and I want it to be a pretty broad EQ filter, so I'm going to give it maybe a 2, and that's raised that a little bit. It certainly popped that up a little bit more. Maybe I'm going to just add a little bit more to that, and yeah, okay, so that's helped it a little bit, maybe a little bit wide. It's affecting this one here. I might make it a 4, which means I need to add a bit more energy into it. I don't know. So what's happening now is it's too narrow, and I'm pushing that peak up too far. So I'm going to go back to 3. I'm going to knock that back to a 2, and yeah, okay. So now I've got that sort of doing that. It was like that. Now I've got it bumped up a bit, and that little. If I just click, and I can sort of go back and forth between, these settings, you can see the effect of the filter. Now, the other option I have is to use what we call a high shelf filter, which will lift this whole low end. You pop it in at a frequency that you want it to affect. So let's say I'm going to put it in at 11,000, and I want it to rise by 3 dB. And it's going to be a pretty narrow filter, so 0.7 is a very broad filter. I want it to be a little more wider than that. That's probably too much. Maybe 0.9. It's looking a bit better. So that is the effect of a high shelf filter. It's pushed lifted this whole bottom end, you can see how that kind of works, versus the EQ filter. Oh, hang on, I need to turn it off. Versus the EQ filter, right? Now both of them do pretty much the same thing. It's just which one you want to use. So just to keep things nice and simple, I'm going to just use the EQ filter, not the high shelf filter. All right, so now we have what's that? I've got a few spares left over. I can put them into order by clicking like that and clicking again. Yep. Alright, so now these are all in order and I've used 23 filters. Now to pop them into the DSP, if you've got a Helix DSP, you can transfer it over automatically using this little double white page icon. If you don't, then one of your options is to sort of write them all down on a bit of paper, or and transfer them over, or you can save a copy of the file using Alt Control 7, I think it is. Let me just double check that. There is a key press that you can use that will give you, let me just see if I can find that for you. Yeah, not sure. It's in the tutorial anyway. If I remember, I will post it in the comments below rather than holding everybody up now. But there's a way to actually save the file, and then you can look it up in notes, window notes or something like that, and you can actually see the whole list, but you'll have to transfer those settings or those filters over manually. Alright, so we're going to automatically, because we're using the Helix DSP, we want to select the speaker that we want to transfer the filters over to, and then we click this double page icon and then hit OK, and boom, there we have it. Here are all the filters, and that is our left tweeter done. Okay, so we need to go back into REW, and the last thing that we need to do now that we've loaded up all the files is to to remeasure the speaker with the new EQ settings in. So you'd normally take a new measurement. I can do that here in REW just by hitting generate measurement from predicted. So now I go into here and I have a new measurement, which is the left tweeter EQ'd. And that's great. So here we have the original measure in green, we have the house curve in orange, and of course REW makes this orange. There we go. Let's turn it, oh, red's not a great color, let's turn it green. Alright, that's a bit better. Now we can see how that original left tweeter, now they're both green. Oh gosh. Here we go. Alright, now the original measure in green and the EQ'd measure in blue, right? And yeah, looks fine. Of course, way down here at 0 dB, down in the weeds, of course, it's not following the house curve, but we don't necessarily care about it way down here. So there you go. That's the left tweeter EQ. Now we're going to move on to the right tweeter. So we can turn off the left, leave the house curve up, bring up the right tweeter, and once again the majority of the speaker response is on the correct side of the target curve for EQing. So we can just select measurement 16, which is this one here, open up the EQ window. Once again, we just want to check, so we don't need to be in generic because we don't need to use the crossover simulator. So I choose Audio-Tech Fisher, my 30 band DSP, and that's that one. Now let's look at the target settings. Now we want the tweeter house curve, which is 3000 on the high pass with a Linkwitz-Riley 24 dB slope, which is LR4. And then we want the low pass turned off. That gives us the tweeter house curve. Now we need to add the target level, which is 73. And we just need to make sure that this room curve, even though it's probably not going to affect the tweeter, it's a good habit to just make sure it's all correct. So 250, it's going to start rising at 250. The rise will end at 20. We want a 6 dB per octave rise. On the high side, we don't want to be perfectly flat, so turn that off. And so all of that is now set correctly, so we can close that down. Now we're doing our filter tasks. We're going to run the same range, 600 to 15,000. That sounds about right, 6, 6 and 1. Let's just hit response to target and see how REW goes. Okay, so it's used 21 filters. It's done a pretty good job through there. If I turn the original measurements on, all down here is all pretty flat. That's great. These really big ripply things, you can see that this peak, as you've pulled all that down, this peak has come down with it, and this one here, this peak hasn't got any worse, but yeah, so it's a bit ripply here, particularly compared to the first one, which only had like a dB difference. This one is 68.8 versus 73, so it's a 4 dB dip. These are probably 1s or 2s, and the center line of these ripples is kind of down here a little bit. So maybe we've got plenty of EQ filters. Maybe we can do something to kind of improve this a little bit, kind of manually. The other way to do it is maybe run an automated version of it. Maybe I'll try that first, and if it doesn't work, then no loss done. I guess it's about sharing different ideas and techniques. So if I'm going to run an auto filter, I want to reduce my range, and I just want to kind of EQ this bit here from 3090 up to 14,000 or something like that, right? So what I'm going to do is just take any filters that are kind of below 3,967. So what I can do is just sort them in ascending order, click, which will take them from the smallest to the largest. And I'm looking for that, anything under about 4,000. So, from this point down, measurement 12. So what I'm going to do is just turn all of those off, because I don't want them to be overwritten, if that makes sense. All right, that one and that one. So now they're all won't be overwritten when I do my auto EQ, and it leaves all of these ones to be redone. I'm going to change the match range to 4,000 to 15,000. Okay. And I'm going to try match response to target now and just see if we get a better response. And not really. It hasn't really helped. Okay, well that's certainly a way to do it. Yeah, I'm not going to spend any more time kind of doing that, but that's certainly one way to do it. What I can do is just get rid of everything and start again. So reset all the filters. Okay, so that's now, everything's back to normal. All of these should be, turn them all back on again. Otherwise, they'll just be blank. Clickety click, click, click. Okay, so there we go. Everything's back on. And we'll just run it all over again. We should get pretty much the same results. Oh, sorry, I didn't change that. And I think something like 500 from memory. I think it was something like that when we did the original measures. All right, so once again, I'm wasting a bit of time, but yeah, there we go. So we're back to here. We've got these little ripples going on. I'm just going to see if I can fix them up manually. And as I said, we've used 22 EQ bands. So let's go over here to 21, 22. I'm going to go right to the end, and I'm going to start by seeing if I can just add a little bit here to 4,000 420. Now this is, it looks like a 3 dB dip, and I'm going to use a little 10 dB, so I can turn that on and off, and you can see the effect of that. It's pushing that up, but it's also pushing the other two peaks up a little bit. So maybe I want to make that even sharper, maybe a 15, and that is affecting it a little bit better. Probably needs a bit more, maybe even a 5 in there. Okay, well that's not too bad. Be nice if this purple line didn't keep showing up, but I'm sure there's a setting there to turn that on and off. Alright, so that's the first one. I've done a little tweak on that. This next one here is at 630 to 6,000 and 6,320. I'm going to do the same type of thing. I think I need about a 4, and I need a very sharp Q, something like that. So it's once again, it's closed that up, but it's pushed those two little peaks up a little bit, but not too bad. Can I fix this one? I think this one's going to actually lift these two peaks. They're pretty close together, but we'll give it a go. So 8,340, give it a 4 and a very sharp Q of, let's say, 15 again, and as I suspected, it's just lifting those two up a little bit too much. Might bring it down to 3, maybe even 2.5, just to sort of get it in the middle there a little bit. Could possibly try to cut these little peaks a little bit. We've got plenty of EQ bands left. Before I do that, I'm going to see if I can lift this one up as well. It's always good to do your boosting first and then adjust with some cuts if you have to. 10,740 is the frequency. I'm going to have to give this a 6, and once again a very sharp Q. And how's that responded? A little bit. Not great, but we know this is probably not going to respond well because this is a very big dip, very big cancellation. So what can we do now? We might be able to just take a little bit out of one of these. So that's 9260, 9260. Let's say -2. And with a 15 again, it's kind of undoing the work that we did before by boosting these things up. I'm not going to be adding more than 6 to that one. This one here, if I turn that one on, I might be able to add a little bit more to this one, let's say a 4, to sort of counteract it a little bit. Maybe has that made it better? Maybe 29. This one here. Well, let's see if we can just cut this little peak down a little bit. Now we're really just mucking around here. We're sort of adding half a dB, just trying to get things a bit flatter. Running out of EQ filters, but I mean you can fiddle around and I don't think you're actually going to hear any of these changes that we're actually making because they're so small. But 7510, a -2 and maybe a 12. So how's that gone? Yep, that certainly dropped it, and we can probably go back now to 28, this one here, and maybe make that a 5. Alright, so that's not bad. It's really this one here that I haven't really nailed just yet. And so maybe a small push here somewhere might lift it up. We've got one band left. May as well use it. So a PK at 1138. One's 1138, and let's give it a 3. And okay, so that has certainly kicked it up a little bit, got it a little more centered. This one's gone a little bit crazy now. Might be able to drop this little one down to, let's say, -4. All right, so that's looking, it's still jaggery, but at least it's kind of all centered up a little bit better. I might have got the same result just by putting in a high shelf filter or a single filter, with a much broader EQ band. But that probably will be okay. I don't usually like to use so many filters, to do that type of stuff. But yeah, it's cleaned it up a bit. All right, so what we'll do is, first of all, just generate a measure of that. So I've got it saved. Go into the DSP. We're going to select the right tweeter, and I'm going to transfer those measurements across. So there's some it's all the peaks and cuts and things that we have been doing. And here's our 0 line here running through the middle. So I'm a bit concerned that this one here is probably overdriving. It's going to overdrive the system a bit. So you just got to watch that. That's the problem with stacking some. So I'm just going to do that again. So if you remember where we around 10,000 hertz, where we have this, this cancellation here, where we put in 6 dB at 10.7, and then 200 hertz later we put another 6 dB. We're really stacking filters, and the result of that is this massive peak here, and that can drive you above the 0 line here, right? This 0 line that I'm sort of just highlighting, and this is where you can get clipping, right? And you don't really want that. So yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to take those two PK filters out and just rerun it all over again. But yeah, this is as I said, this is the way I go about doing the EQ work. So I'm going to reset everything one more time. Reset all the filters. Run it again. See what we get. This is going to be a bit choppy again. That's all right. But I'd rather do that. And maybe what I'm going to do is just put in a simple little poke in here somewhere at 7/8, PK at 7870, maybe a 3 with a Q of 2. Oops, way too much. 1 with a Q of 2. What has that actually done? It's kind of lifted everything. Q of 1. This is a very broad filter. So now you can see it's sort of lifted everything a little bit, make it a little more centered than it was. And it hasn't really affected that point. So I'm just going to do that. Once again, save a copy of that. I'm going to go into the right tweeter, and I'm going to reset the EQ. Right, so that's back to normal, and then I'm going to recopy everything in. Bang. Alright, so now let's have a look at what's happened. So here's the 0 line now, and you can see that peak has been significantly reduced. So it's a little bit above it. It's maybe 1 dB, 2 dB above the 0 line, but we are at much less risk of clipping, and everything looks much better. So I'm much happier with that outcome. So that's the right tweeter plugged in now. I'm going to go back into REW. We can close that, and into over here. Now I've saved 2 copies of that. That was the first one we can get rid of, and now we have, we would remeasure the speaker, of course, with the new EQ settings in it, but in this case I'm just doing this, which is the right tweeter with the crossovers, and we're going to change that color to purple. How about that? Purple or pink. Alright, so let's get rid of that's the original measure in blue, the EQ'd measure in pink, and let's have a look when we bring up the left tweeter and the right tweeter together. Alright, so up here I'm not worried about it at all. I can't even hear up to 15,000, and all this will do is pull the left tweeter is playing lower than the right tweeter, so you will find that at 15,000 the notes won't be perfectly centered because one is playing louder than the other, so it'll pull slightly right. And you could probably go and fix that with a little EQ if you wanted to. I'm not going to bother. And this is sort of rolling all the way off, and as I said, down here we're not at all concerned about what's happening down here. If you are a bit OCD and you want to go and EQ this as well, as I said, be my guest, but I wouldn't normally go and chase that. But otherwise, you can see if I just turn off the house curve, the speakers are pretty matched, and where we got that big dip here at 10,000 that we it has we were trying to EQ that out and get it to be a little bit more smoother, but we've got these two speakers playing pretty well together. Alright, so that is the tweeters. We're now going to move on to the mids. Alright, so next are the mids. We're going to turn off the tweeters, bring up the mid-range house curve, which looks like this. Target line is at 73, and it's rolling off at, let's have a little look what we set them at. The high pass is 200 with a Liquids Riley 24 dB slope, and the low pass is 3000 with a Liquids Riley 24 dB slope. So that's our house curve. You can see the effect of the low pass rise. So this measurement 13, or the house curve 13, the fact that it's going, we're adding a 6 dB slope from 250, you'll see a little kink in the target curve, and it drags this whole target curve out, which we'll have a quick look at in just a moment of how that is working. But let's just bring up the left mid with the crossovers in it, and this is the speaker in brown. Okay, so the first thing is that we need to be able to push the speaker response slope out beyond this target curve on both sides. So that means that the crossover settings of 200 and 3000 with Liquids Riley 24 dB slopes are not going to work with this particular target curve, right? This one's pretty close, but this one's a long way out, and as I said, this is being impacted by the house curve itself. Alright, so if I just where's that come from? This purple line, what is that? And I've clicked on something. It's that one there. We can get rid of that. Alright, just to run this one down, I'm going to go into the left mid, and I'm going to bring up the EQ tool, and we're just going to quickly check the crossover settings. So, sorry, the house curve settings: 200 Liquids Riley, LR4s, 3000, blah blah blah, 250, 26, 73. That's all fine. Just going to change this match range to 20 so we can see the whole graph. All right, so you can see that this 24 dB Liquids Riley slope is pretty close to the house curve, right? But this one is not. It's a long way out, and it's because of the effect of adding this 6 dB rise. It's quite aggressive. A normal tune, as I said, would be 3 or 4 dB rise, not 6. But if I want, if I've got a super noisy car and I want to overcome all that engine noise and stuff, then I have a very high 6 dB per octave rise, or it might sometimes even more. But if I take that room curve off, you can see what happens to the slope. Right now, this 24 dB slope on the mid range is much closer to the target line. But because we want that to sort of lift up and go like that, so does the target line. Alright, so what do we need to do? We need to find the crossover settings that are best going to work with this, and we can do that by checking the full range measures. And that's why I said earlier in the introduction, you're going to need your full range measures to do your EQ work. So let's go and find the left mid-range full range measure, which is measurement number 3. So we can turn off 17 and turn on number 3. So we know that we can get some sort of crossover that's going to be outside this target line because our full range measure is completely outside the target line, right? But we need to work out what crossovers we need to apply and then duplicate in our DSP. So the way we do that is we go into the EQ tool. So I've got the left mid-range full range measure selected. I go into the EQ tool and we do this whole thing again. I want to make sure I'm in generic this time because I want to be able to use the crossover settings, right? This crossover simulator. But first of all, I need to check that I've got the house curve and everything set up properly. So I think we said 200 LR4, not LR2. That's a 12 dB slope, and 3000 LR4. So this is the house curve settings, right? Regardless of what crossovers and things that we're playing around with, these settings always stay the same. We always keep our target curves at the same settings. They don't change. Now our added room curve 250 with a 6 dB rise, and our target is 73. Great. So now we've got our target curve set up correctly. Now we need to find the crossover slopes that are best going to deal with this problem. So we can go into here and we can play around with the crossovers. So the low pass 3000 Liquid Riley 24, high pass 200 Liquid Riley 24. We'll start with the low pass first, which is this one over here, and we can do a couple of things. We can so let me just say, ideally you want to sort of start with the top and work your way down, because it doesn't really matter what electrical filters that you use. What's important is the acoustical result, with the speaker actually playing the result. So if you set a low pass, which is, I don't know, 5,000, right? Something like that, you can see it solves the problem, right? And when you EQ it back, the speaker is never going, even though you've got a crossover set at 5,000, it will never play at it will play at 5,000, but it'll only play at that volume. So you don't, people get worried about, I put a crossover in my tweeter at, 500 hertz. That's fine, as long as, it's not playing 500 hertz, that this, it's really what's being played by the target curve that's important, right? Not what the crossover settings are. So I might put in here 5,000 to fix that problem, right? But I'm probably just going to try a little bit, 3.5. I could bump it up to 4,000. That's looking a lot better. I'd rather play with the crossovers than play with the slopes and the crossover slopes, or the sharpness, the gentleness of the slope first, right? So I might move to 4,000. When this gets cut, when we EQ this, these two little dips are then going to dip below the line. So I could go with a 12 dB, but that's going to throw all of that out. I'm going to then have to cut all of that out, which is not great. I could also go with, for example, a Butterworth, which will give me a little more room here, but not necessarily there. So I want to probably leave it as a Liquid Riley if I can. What I would probably do later is just put in a filter or an EQ filter at I don't know, 7,000, something like that. Just right smack bang in the middle here, give it 4 dB and maybe a 1. And you can see that that's given me some extra room. But we're just setting crossovers at the moment, so I don't want to muck around with EQ filters just yet, because what we want to do is create a new crossover speaker measurement, right? So no EQ filters in my crossover measurements if I can. All right, so that's the high pass. I think we can set a crossover and get that slope on the low pass worked. On the high pass, let's see what we can do. If I went to 100, it's not really helping us beyond this point here at 39 dB or at 55 hertz. So that doesn't look to really help us out very much. So I can try a different type of slope, like a Bezel or a Butterworth. Neither of those seem to be very good. So my next option is probably a 12 dB slope, which has pushed all of that out a little bit. I can also sort of drop that down to 150, but that's going to have to cut a lot all through here. Maybe if I leave it at 200, and I'll try the same type of thing by putting a filter in, maybe down here at 55 or something. So 55, a 6 dB and a 1. That has not really helped a lot. I really want to see if we can get this part sort of beyond the line here, because this is 30, 40 hertz. If I get it down, across the line at 30, it might be okay without stretching it too far. Maybe if I drop this down to 30, does that really help? Not really. Maybe if I put a 30 and a 50 in, would that help? Stretch it out. 6 and a 1. Now we're getting close. Not really. Yeah, so not sure if those things are really helping that much. Maybe that one did. Maybe this one certainly improved things at 50. Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one, this one. But certainly I definitely need a 12 dB slope. If I had the option, I might even go with a 6 dB slope on that one to try to really drag it out. But unfortunately, I don't have the option to do that. So that's probably as good as I'm going to be able to get the high pass here on the mid-range. Yeah, so quite tricky. Maybe if I switch to a Bezel and one of those, does that really help? No, or neither does that really. Alright, so Linkwitz Riley 12 dB slope, maybe with a bit of a PK filter, popped in down there a little bit. Might even have to put a third one in down at 20 hertz. Don't really like doing this, but it's not really making a huge amount of difference. It's moving it from maybe there to there, not gaining a lot. This one's gaining a bit more. This one's not gaining a lot either. So it seems like a higher setting. No, not really. So you can fiddle around with this to try to get the best option that you can. I'm probably going to go with something like that. But as I said, we don't want EQ filters when we're just setting crossovers. So what I'm going to do is go with, so I'm going to get rid of all of those. We'll take care of that stuff later. So these are the crossover that I'm going to use. And let's just go into the DSP. I want to select my front left mid, and I'm going to change the settings over. So on the high pass, we're going to use 200 with a Linkwitz Riley 12 dB slope, And on the low pass, we're going to change the crossover to 4000, and we're going to leave that at a 24, and that should get us pretty close to be able to EQ the mid bass to that very aggressive 6 dB target line. Okay, so what I would do is go remeasure that speaker now with the new crossovers in. We're going to simulate that in REW just by going to here and calculate, sorry, where is it? Generating measurement from predicted, and that will drop a new measurement down here, and that is going to be our left mid crossovers. Now we've got a 200 Linkwitz Riley 2 and a 4000 Linkwitz Riley 4. Now that's going to be our new crossover measure, so I'm going to slide it right up here next to the old one, well, the one that we did originally. I'm not going to get rid of it, just going to leave it there. And that is measurement 18. So here's the full range measure. This is the measure with the crossovers we've selected. As we said, this is sliding away, quite sharply. I probably want a 6 dB slope instead of a 12. I'm pretty sure in the DSP we can do. No, we can't do a 6. Can we do a custom? No. 12 is the best we can do. Yeah, so we're just going to have to live with that. It's less than 30 dB, 43 versus 73, so it's 30 dB down. Yeah, not ideal, but is what it is. Alright, so now we're going to use this new crossover measure to do the EQ work. So we're going to make sure it's selected, go into EQ. Now we don't need the generic, we can now switch this to Audio Tech Fisher so I can get my full 30 bands. Now just make sure the crossover is set. Now we don't want to change this to match the DSP because this is our target curve and that is staying consistent. So 200 LR4, 3000 LR4, our house curve 250 blah 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 73, that is all set up properly. Now we need to set our match range. Now if we go too low, REW is going to try to boost all of this, so let's say we're going to go from maybe 40, so we'll set that to 40, and on the other side maybe once again, REW is going to try to cut all of this back to this line, which will pull this little peak down. So we don't want to go way down here somewhere. Maybe 9,000 sounds about right. We can always change it. 661. Let's see what else we need to do. Well, we did say that we could put in some manual filters that seem to sort of help us before we do some EQ work. So let's do that first. So the first manual filter, I think we said we're going to pop it in around about 7,000, something like that. And it was going to be a 6 dB with a 1 rise. So that's that certainly lifted all of these little peaks. So maybe we can go a little bit further down the line here, make that 10,500, right? Okay. On the other side, PK, I think we said something like about 40, 6 dB rise with a 1. Okay, that's improved it a little bit. So, good-o. The other thing that we can try to do, I'm pretty sure this is going to be a really deep cancellation, so we can just quickly check that. Yes, it's actually a double cancellation in the same spot. This is also a pretty deep dip. Unlikely that these two things will respond to EQ, but yeah, we can see if we can just pop a little EQ filter in there and push this up a little bit. So EQ filter at 1466. Give it a 6 and give it a really sharp Q. Has that helped at all? A little bit, not much. We'll see. And maybe just push this up, because as we cut all of this in our EQ work, it's going to pull this little piece down. So let's just do this first. So that's 381. Give it a good old whack, and maybe a 12, something like that. Okay, so that's looking, most of it's outside of the curve. This is probably going to get pulled down, probably going to get a little dip in here and here. This might get pulled down, not sure, but let's make sure these are all turned off, otherwise it'll get overwritten when it's running the auto EQ. But I think we're ready to go, and away we go. See, let REW do its thing. And there we go. It's used all but one EQ filter. So we've got one left over. Or have we? Yes, now we've got one left over. And as we expected, this is still showing up. We've got a little bit of that one showing up as well. But it's, how much is it? It's 70.5 versus 72. So about, it's a 1.56, something like that, dB dip. But it's flattened all that out. We know that we can't do much about this. This is all flattened out. That looks all good. So what would we change? Maybe we would lift this all a little fraction. But let's just let's leave it for the moment and see how that stacks up against the right hand mid. Maybe we'll keep that little EQ filter for a little bit later, but that's all done. I'm going to create a copy of that as if I was measuring that speaker, and we're going to put that into the DSP. So left hand mid is selected, click that, boom, it's all dropped in. Let's go and have a look at that. So it's going to be the left mid EQ'd. Awesome. I'm going to change that color to red. And we can turn these other ones off. Alright, so there's the EQ'd speaker response. As we know, below that point, we just couldn't push this up. And there's that little cancellation dip. It's not too big. Yeah, so that looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that. Okay, let's move on to the right mid bass. So we can turn the left one off and bring up the right mid bass crossover. Not right mid bass, right mid, sorry. And that is right mid. That's this one here. Measurement 19, and of course it's green versus green. So once again, our problem's going to be this slope here and getting it to run over here. And this one, of course, is running off like that, so that's not too bad. So it means we need to use the full range measures again, and that's going to be measurement number 4. So turn that off, bring up number 4. Okay, great. So once again, select measurement 4, go into EQ. We want to just make sure that we're going to need generic because we're going to want to use the crossovers. We just check all of this is set up properly. So 200 LR4, 3000 LR4. Room curve 6, and our target line is 73. Okay, so once again, our range is going to be 40 to 10,500, which is what we used on the left mid bass. Once again, we just want to play around with the crossovers and see if we can push this one out a little bit and this one a little bit that way. So let's go and check that out. I think on the other one we ended up putting in 4,000 and a Linkwitz Riley 12. Now they don't need to match, but they're usually a good indicator of what's going to work on the other speaker. So if we change this to 4,000, boom, there we go. That looks pretty good. And if we change this one to an LR12, we get a similar result to what we had on the left-hand speaker. Like it's actually worse. It's only getting down to 49. We might need to add a PK filter. I think we put one in at 40 with a 6 and a 1 on the left-hand side. Okay, that's getting us down to about 35 down through here. We could maybe make it a Butterworth, maybe make it, oops, I'm using the wrong side. Maybe make it a Butterworth, or maybe make it a bezel. That would certainly help. The bezel with a little bit of a kick over here looks like a better option than a Linkwitz Riley. But maybe if we leave it as an LR12 and with a bit of a kick and drop the crossover a little bit, would that help? Yes, that has helped quite a lot. 200. Okay, so maybe I'm going to make the crossover on this one, 170, and with that little PK boost, and then I can leave them both as Linkwitz Riley slopes and all that stuff, right? Okay, so the other major problem is, of course, here. But as I said, we're not interested in that just yet. We're just trying to come up with crossovers that might actually work. So this is what we're going to use on the right-hand side. And as I said, don't panic, because it doesn't matter what electrical crossovers you're using. What's important is the speaker response at the end of the day. So that's a 12, and this is 4,000. They don't need to match. Ideally, if you can get them to match, that's great. But as I said, this one's on this. Sorry, the left mid is 200. This one's going to be 170, but the responses are going to be the same as when we EQ them to the target curve. When you're changing the slopes, though, from Linkwitz to, let's say, Bezel or Butterworth, it does change the slope, but it also changes the relationship, the phase relationship through the crossover. So where you can, try to use the same type of crossover slope, but once again, as I always say, it's more important to get the acoustical response, and it doesn't matter as much what electrical filters that you use. But okay, probably spoke about that to death. Alright, so that's now plugged into the right mid, and we can go back into REW, and with just the crossovers selected, I can now make a measurement of that new speaker with the crossovers in. So this is now the right mid with new crossovers. It's a 170 LR2 and a 4000 LR4. Alright, good. So now we can get rid of, we can slide the right mid new crossover measurement up to here. Right, like that. And this is the one we're now going to do the EQ work on. Alrighty, so let's open up the EQ window, just check that we've got the right measurement selected that we're going to do the work on. Now we can change our thing to Audio-Tech Fisher 30 bands. That's my DSP. So now I've got my full 30 bands again. Let's check all of this stuff. 200, 250, 673. Yes, yes, yes. Range is already set for us. Fantastic. Now I already said that we wanted to put in some little boosts. So the first one was over here, PK 40 with a 6 and a 1. Right, so that has got us all the way down to about 35, which is pretty much the same as we had on the other, on the left-hand mid. So that's great. This is all pushed out far enough. I don't need to add any more EQs. The problem area is this little area here. And I'm pretty sure if we change it to 148 smoothing, yes, we've got a massive cancellation there, another massive one there. This one's very, very deep as well, and will probably peak down underneath the target line. But what we, probably won't respond, but we might be able to, just lift this little area just a fraction. We'll see. Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to do is basically just pop a PK filter in here somewhere, a little bit wide. So 1500, make it 1500 neat. I'm going to give it a big boost, and I'm going to make it probably a 4 or something like that. So you can see that what it's done is just lifted that whole region a bit. I can make it a little bit wider. It will kind of affect a bigger area. So maybe we'll do something like that. So that has kind of these peaks are going to drop down because we're going to cut both these sides, and it's going to push that down again. But it's certainly better than starting like that. All right, we've got to turn those two off so they don't auto EQ when we run it, and we're going to hit match response. Just let REW do its thing. Taking a little while. And there we go. So yeah, it's a bit choppy through this region. We've used all of the bands, so we don't have any filters left. And of course, this is a big, massive cancellation. We expected that. And here's this other cancellation, which is just sort of peeked through here, but generally it doesn't look too bad. So before I go and pop this into the DSP, I just want to save a copy of this so we can have a quick look versus the left hand measure. So let's go and have a quick peek at that now. I'm going to turn off these other ones. So we've got that is the right hand mid that we've just EQ'd, and here is the left hand mid that we've just EQ'd. And it's okay, there's these dips here. There's not much we can do about those. They're cancellations, but the good thing is they're both on the same speaker, right? Same dip, same point. And these this area where the slope is sloping away, yes, it's not following the curve as we probably would have liked, but at least they're kind of following each other, down, way down here. And this is, 35 dB down from the peak. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with all of that. So on that basis, I'm going to go into the DSP. I want the front right mid, and we're going to copy those filters across, and there we go. We've got a pretty big peak going on here. Let's just have another quick look at that, because like I said before, we don't want to overdrive the speakers, and that's a big 6 dB that we sort of popped in to sort of push everything up. But it's not too bad. I think we'll kind of live with it, right? Okay, so that is the right mid done. Means I can go into into here and just save that, sorry, as right mid EQ. Okay, great. So that is the mids and tweeters both done. So mids and the left and right tweeters. And if we have a look at the house curve, that's not looking too bad at all. Slope, slope, slope. Running through the middle of the house curve. Yeah, pretty happy with that so far. All right, so now we're going to move on to the next speaker pair, which will be the mid bass. All right, so we can get rid of all of that, bring up the mid bass house curve, and just double check the settings in the DSP. So this is going to be 90 Linkwitz-Riley 24 dB slope and a 200 Linkwitz-Riley 24 dB slope for the house curve. So let's go in and first of all we want to select the left mid bass with the crossovers, and once again we've got this needs to be pushed out, this needs to be pushed out, so we're going to have to jump straight into the full range measures. So that's measurement number 6. Get rid of that and bring up number 6. Just make sure that, yep, it's well and truly outside of the target curve. Alright, so bring up the EQ window again. We're going to have to play around with the crossovers, so we need them generic. We said 90 LR4, 200 LR4. That's given us that. Our room curve is 6. Now, our target level is normally 73, but we know that this house curve needs to be higher than that. I'm just going to generate a copy of this house curve at target level 73 and compare it to the house curve that we've got here. And as we can see, that new one that I've just created, which is measurement 40, and it's this brownie color is actually below the house curve setting. So that's at 76. This one's at 79. So what is going on? I think we need to check out the left mid bass crossover settings, go into EQ and just see what, so the target level has been set at 76. So that seems to be, so I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to go back into the EQ tool. Sorry if this is a bit confusing, because we know that when we have the house curve set, we know that this is 73 running through here, but we know that we have to lift our target curve for the mid bass if it's going to stay level with this house curve rise. So the mid bass target curve is not going to be 73, it's going to be this number here, right? 76 or something. It should be 79 if we want to hit it. And then you've got the front sub and the rear sub, which will also be different numbers. So we just keep that in mind when we're doing the EQ house curve setting. But if you make a copy and compare it to your house curve framework and they lie on top of each other, then you know you're on the right track. So back to our left mid bass, we're going to change that to 76. Just to double check it one more time, I'm going to generate a measure. Is it perfectly on top? No, it's not. What have I done? Alright, so that's target 40. Let's get rid of that, because that's a rubbish measure. I'm in the left mid bass. I'm in the EQ. Left mid bass, 76. That needs to be set to 6. These are not correct. This is 90 LR4. This is 200. 200 LR4. That's better. Now we should generate a measurement from target, and sure enough, it is right on top of our measure. So great, that's perfect. I'll just get rid of it because we don't need it. We just need to confirm that we had our target level set correctly. All right, so back to work. We need generic because we need to find the proper crossover settings. That's all now set correctly. I want my range to be full range so I can see everything down to 20 Hertz. 661, all of that stuff is the same. All right, so let's go and have a look at our crossover settings way down this end. And we've got them set for 200, 90, LR, all that stuff. So let's see what we can do on the low pass first. Maybe changing the low pass to 250. It's helped, but we've got a massive big thing going on here. Let's just check it out on, is it a cancellation? What's going on? Nope, it's just a big dip. Yeah, just something going on phase related maybe, not sure. But yeah, that's should respond to EQ okay. So if we push it to 250, that doesn't really solve the problem. So let's put it back to 200. A bezel doesn't solve it. A Butterworth doesn't solve it. So let's try a 12 dB slope. That does, but wow, that's a lot of cutting to do. I don't like the look of that. Let's try 250, which pushes it out a fair bit. And can I fix it with a PK EQ filter at something like, you know, putting something smack bang in the middle of that? Let's say 390, 6 dB slope with a Q of 1, and gets us pretty damn close. Maybe if we made it a Butterworth. Nope, we made it a bezel. Geez, that's a lot of cutting. Can I cut that back? Yeah, what would we do? Not crazy about using, that's a lot of cutting to do, so maybe we can drop that back to 200. Okay, that would probably work. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to use a bezel 24 and add like an EQ filter to sort of push everything out, and then we can EQ it back. All right, so that'll kind of work for us. So I'm going to just turn that off for the moment. Now the other side, am I going to be able to do that with a crossover maybe at 50? Wee. Maybe. That would get us close. Let's put that back to 90. What about a 12 dB slope would work really well, although we've got this, you know, thing going on here. So maybe a 50. 50's helped that little area out as well. Maybe a little bit of both. Okay, well, that has, you know, that would certainly work. A 70 crossover with a 12 dB slope. That would, you know, would have to cut all of this back, but you know, that's not too bad. And maybe if we just use a EQ filter here at 103 with a 6 and a, you know, Q of maybe 4. There we go. All right, so that would work pretty well. All right, and we could EQ everything back. So I think we found, excuse me, I think we found our crossover settings that we're going to use. So once again, we're going to put them into the DSP, and this is now the left mid bass. Sorry, we want a crossover of 70. We want Linkwitz Riley 12 dB slope, 70, boom. On the other end, we want 200, a bezel, and a 24 dB slope. Right, so that's our crossovers now done. What we would do is basically remeasure that as a new crossover. Once again, I'm just going to generate a new measurement, and this will be the left mid bass crossover, and we've got a 70 LR4, no, LR2, and a 200 bezel 4. I think that's correct. All right, that's just to let us, just as a reminder of what our crossover settings are. So I'm going to slide that up underneath the old crossover measurement, and we're going to use this to do our EQ work now. So I can turn off that house curve, and I can turn off the full range measure. That's what we've now got to work with, and we know we can bump that up pretty well. All right, so EQ, let's get on with it. I'll turn this back to Audio-Tech Fisher to give me my 30 bands. Speaker driver 90 L, all of that stays the same because that's our target curve. All of that stays the same. Target level 76, all looks great. Now I want to put in a couple of EQ filters that we were thinking about using before. The first one is this little push here at I think, let's call it 380 maybe, with a 6 and a 1. Boom. Right, that's pushed that all out, which is lovely. And then I want to, I think we've solved that with I don't think we had an EQ filter on that side, which is great. It's just this little one here at 103, I think it was 103. I'm going to put a 4 and a, I don't know, a 7 maybe. No, that's a bit more than that, maybe a 5. I'll give it 6 and a 5. All right, that's more than enough. All right, so let's get rid of those two so they don't get copied over, and let's run our match response to target. Let REW do its thing. And what we forgot to do was actually change our match range. So REW has done all of this EQ work way over here because we set the match range to 10,000. All right, so we want to set the match range. I think we can set it to 10, but over here we probably only want to set it to 800 or something. So let's call it 850, and let's just try that again. Alright, so if I set it to 10, it's done something completely weird over here, so I'm going to set that back to 20. But this side, not too bad. Run it one more time. And when you're running it, as long as you've kept those, you can see the green ones where we've applied the manual PK filters. Alright, so that's a little bit better. I think I'm just going to manually adjust a couple of these things here. It's used 20 filters, so we have a heap left over. So first of all, I just want to do a little niggle on that one. So that's 101. I probably want to do a 1.5, and that's pretty damn close. Maybe a 9. Nope. Maybe 1.3. With a 7. Bring it down even more, maybe a 1. 1 and a 7. Nope. So we can fiddle around with this a bit. That's looking a bit better. And one more tweak, 1.2. Boom. All right. Okay, that looks great. I just want to correct this little bit here if I can. So a PK filter at 330. Going to maybe give it a 2 and maybe a 6. Nope, not quite enough. 3 and a 6. That's looking better. Okay, so let's close that right up. Might even give it a 3.5 just to close it up even more. Alright, so that looks nice. I want to do the same over here one more time. So that's at 24. Let's say give that a 3 and maybe a 5 or a 4. Drop that down a little bit, maybe on a 20. No, that hasn't helped. 26. 24 was probably the right number to start with. Okay, so that's kind of making that look pretty good. Now we've used a few more EQ bands. Back into the DSP, selecting the... Are we working on the left or the right? We are working on the left. That's fine. And now we can copy that in. There we go. Nothing much over 0, so that's all fine. And once again, we can go remeasure that now with the new filter settings in. I'm just going to simulate that by generating a measurement from predicted. And there we go. Now we have our left mid-bass mid-bass EQ'd. Lovely. And if we have a quick look at how that turned out, it's in green. The crossovers were in orange, so we can get rid of that. And you can see that, yeah, okay, from here it's a bit funny, but that's below 20 Hertz. There's not a lot we can do about that. I don't think we can add a cut in at 10 Hertz. Maybe we can. But yeah, down to there, it's all pretty smooth. So far, so good. That's the mid-bass, left mid-bass done. Let's move on to the right mid-bass. Same thing, we need the right mid-bass crossovers, and same story, they need a bit of work. So we need to go to the right mid-bass full range, measurement 6. Here we are. And go into EQ, and once again we're going to need generic. That is all set correctly. That is all set correctly. This needs to be 76, so that's now set correctly. The range is going to be around about the same, but we probably going to try the same filter settings that we had. So 200 bezel 24. Oops, where are we here? Crossovers. 200 bezel 24. It's pretty close. We can just do, once again, a bit of a PK filter to push that. Sorry, EQ filter to push that out a little bit. On the other side, I think we used a 12 dB slope, which has got it pretty close with, was it 70? Yep, 70. Crossover of 70. All right, so yeah, a bit of a punch there. That's pushed all that out. Yeah, once again, it's pushing out from 20 onwards. But yeah, I think we can work with that. All right, so that's going to be our crossover settings. Once again, we're going to go into the DSP. We're now working on the right-hand side. We said a bezel for that one, 24. We said 70 on this side with a 12 dB slope. Okay, goodo. We can now go and take a measurement of the new crossover settings. We're going to do that down here by generating measurement from predicted, back into REW, and down the bottom here we now have the right mid-bass crossover, 70 with an LR2 and 200 with a bezel 4. And we're going to slide that up here again. There we go. Now we're going to use, there's the new crossover measure. We can get rid of the full range measure. All right, that's what we're starting with, and we're going to go and do our EQ work again. So you kind of got the idea by now. Changing that. 90 blah 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 96 all looks great. Now we wanted to put in a couple of little filters to, you know, push this stuff out. I think I'm going to sort of throw one in probably around here. So 556, let's start with that. 556, a 6 and a 1. Let's give it all the boost. That's pushed all of that out. Probably need to do another little one here just to get rid of this dip. It's a long way down, but doesn't hurt. We've got plenty of EQ bands to play with, so 730. I'm going to give that also a 6 and just see what happens with a narrow. No, it's not enough. Maybe a 5. Nope. 2. Nearly there. Maybe another 1. Okay. So that's definitely going to get pulled back down. It's a phase wrap of some type. You can see, you know, this very sharp down, dip and a very sharp peak. Some sort of phasey thing going on. But yeah, let's go with that. On the other side, we really want to sort this little bump out here. So once again, let's just tackle that first. Maybe around 70 with a 6 and, you know, a 3 maybe. Has that fixed that? Yes, it has, and it's kept that. You know, we haven't had to add another filter or anything to it, so that might be okay. All right, so we're going to turn all of those off, and now we're going to run our match. Just check our match response. 20 to 850. Yep, match response to target, and here we go. Seeming to run its thing, and there we go. Alright, so this is popped down a little bit. We can fix that. It's got a couple of little dippy things going on there. Why have we got that pink line going on? What is that? So one of these, I got some setting on here that's causing a bit of a headache. I think it's 17. Yeah, okay. Yeah, a bit weird. Alright, so what do we need to fix? A little bump here, a little bump there, maybe a couple of little tweaks here, but you know, it's not a million miles away, so let's work our way through these. We've got plenty of filters left to play with. So the first one I'm going to do is here at 27 Hertz. Going to put in a 2 and maybe a 1, and that is probably a bit too much. Cut it back to a 3 and a 3, because I don't want to push this out too far. Maybe even a 4. No, 3 makes it look a lot better. Alright, so that's pretty good down through there. Got a little bit of a dip here, so let's fix that little guy up. That's at 77. Maybe a 1 and a pretty sharp little Q there, just to fix that up. Maybe a 2. Alright, so that's now following all that up. Another little one here. That's at 158. Same thing, a 2 and maybe a 15. Yep, okay, that's following it quite nicely now. No problems. And let's see if we can just fix this little bit here at what's that, 594. 594. Maybe a 4 and maybe a 5. Would that fix it up? Probably a bit too much. Try a 3.5. And a 2. Too much. Alright, so we've got a little bit of a kink there, but yeah, that's looking pretty good. Alright, before I lock that into the DSP, I want to just generate a measure and have a really quick look and see how it stacks up against the other measurements. Oh, sorry, the left mid base and the right mid base. So these two measures. Get rid of the house curve. Just put that out of the way for a moment. And yeah, okay. So it's following this. These two speakers are pretty evenly matched, even to this crazy little humpy thing going on below 20 hertz. So I'd be pretty happy to lock that away. So we're going to go into the it's the right mid bass, transfer those things in. It's all below 0, so that's great. And now I think that's kind of done for the right mid bass. I can now change that to right mid bass EQ'd. Happy days. All right, so now we're going to move on to the let's just look at the right mid bass house curve. Yep, it's not really following it down here, but we're not worried. Yeah, okay, we can live with that. All right, let's move on to the next one, which will be our front sub. Now we want the front sub crossover measure, which is 29. Not too bad here, bit of a disaster over here. Same, we're going to have to use the front sub full range measures, which is measurement number 11. And just repeat the process that we're all used to. So this is the full range measure, so it can be EQ'd, no problems. Let's go do that. Now, before I move to that, the front sub is this one here. It's 40 and 90 Linkwitz Riley 24 dB slopes, just so we know what our house curve is set at. And we also need to just confirm the target level. So I think, let's go here and have a look. We've got it set to 76, but yeah, I'm not sure. Is that right? I think it's going to be higher than that, but we'll soon find out. So just turn that off for a second. So we want to match this purple house curve, right, as we're doing it. So full range front sub measurement, going into EQ, open all that up. So 40, 90, that's all set correctly. That's all set correctly. Now we said it's supposed to be 76. Generate measurement from target. Let's go see how close that is. That's that one, and it's spot on, so it is 76. Ah, well, who knew? Okay, great. So I can get rid of that target. So it's matching the purple one. That's great. Right, so now that we are got that right, we need to work out these EQ filters. So let's have a little look. So first of all, let's work on the low pass first. If we change this to 120, what happens? We get a pretty good result. Okay, let's push that all out. That would work for us. On the other side, I don't think we can drop this crossover any lower. So let's just stick with 40. Let's try a 12 dB slope, which is not going to kind of get us there. What about a Butterworth or a bezel? That help us. The bezel certainly is better. Let's just go back to the LR Linkwitz Riley for a moment. Can I drop it down to 30? That would help us a little bit. With a Butterworth in it, that helps us even more, and with a bezel, so it pops all this out, which doesn't really help because we're not going to EQ below 20. So can we push this out a bit with a filter at, let's say, 25 hertz, something like that, a 6 and a 1. Will that get us out of trouble? Pretty damn close. Yes, so an LR12 will get us there. A Butterworth will definitely get us there. Yep. And maybe I don't even need to use 6 on it. Maybe a 4 or something like that. Or even a 3 would kind of work as well. This is all going to get EQ'd down. So, all right. It's a workable, something will work here, right? All right, so I can turn that off. All right, so this, oh, hang on, maybe if I just set this back to 40, where was that PK? 25, a 6, and a 1, I think I was talking about. That would be awesome. Look, that's almost on the line there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm a bit hesitant to drop this crossover much too low because yeah, it's getting into the rear sub territory, right? But as I said, use the crossovers that you need to. So that's what I'm going to try. I'm going to do 40 Butterworth 12 with an LR 24, and let's be done with it. So I can go into the front sub. The low pass is going to be 120 with a Linkwitz Riley 24, and the high pass is going to be 40 Butterworth. Butterworth, there you are, 12. Alrighty, so that's our 2 settings. Now we're going to just go and measure that and create a new crossover. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. We go back into REW, and that's front sub crossover 40 with a Butterworth 2, and the other one is 120 with a LR 4. Right, so we take our new front sub with the crossovers to there. There it is. We can close that now. We can get rid of the full range measure. Here it is. Alright, so here we have the new crossover settings. We're going to punch a little EQ filter into there, and that should all be pretty good. Alright, so let's go into here. We can use the Audio-Tech Fisher, 30 bands, 40, 90, that's all the same. It's got to set up our match range, so we're going to go 20 through to about, well, we can do it all the way down to 350, I guess, maybe 320, way down here somewhere. That'll stretch all that stuff out. Yep. Okay, so now we want to go and throw in some filters. I think the first one was at 25, a 6, whoops, 6 and a 1. Right, that corrected all of that stuff. Looks okay. And then this side here is pretty close. So I think maybe that's just start with that and we can see how it turns out. So match response to target, it's used 10 filters. We can do a little tweak maybe here. So let's just do that. That's at 100. Going to add maybe 3 dB with a 7. That's pretty damn good. And this one here at 205. 205. I'm going to add maybe a 3 and an 8. Yep, great, no problems. Yeah, I could probably even put a little tweaky one there if I really wanted to, but why not? We've got plenty of filters. 41. I'm going to add 1 and a 10. Looks great. Okay, so that is all of the filters done. That looks pretty good. I'm going to just take a measurement of that, check it in REW. So this will be our front sub EQ'd. Just close that for a second, get rid of the crossover measure, wherever that's gone. There it is. And here is the front sub, following that down. Now I could probably fix this little bit here. I'm not really that worried about it. Can't do much about anything below here, but the front sub's following the house curve pretty nicely. So that's a pretty good response. Okay, so let's go and pop that into the DSP. Got my EQ filters. Hit that. Looks ugly as, but that's the way it is. Alright, and that is our front sub complete. And now we can move on to the rear sub. Okay, onto the rear sub. So we're going to bring up the rear sub house curve. And once again, we're just going to check the rear sub crossover, which is measurement 31. So once again, we're not really worried about much under 20 Hertz. Try to push this up if we can, but this rear sub is sort of rolling off like that. Not sure if it's the measurement mic or the sub itself, but we don't need to play with the crossovers. That looks like that will EQ up quite nicely. Let me just check the full range measure on the sub, which is number 12. Where is it? Number 12. There we are. Okay, yep. So we might be able to put a little bit of a low rise thingy thing here, sort of below 20, to see if we can lift this end up a little bit. But yeah, it's looks like we're just going to EQ this. So once again, back into the DSP, let's just check the settings. So we have no high pass, we've got a low pass at 40 with a Linkwitz Riley 24 dB slope. But this should be pretty simple. So measurement 31, that's selected into EQ, open that up. We don't need to use generic this time, just the Audio-Tech Fisher for our full 30 bands. We've got our 40 LR4 target curve, 256, blah, 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 blah. Now it's got a target level of 73. I'm just going to generate and just check it that that's correct. And 73, that is correct. Okay, so good-o. And now we should be able to just do the EQ work, right? Whoops, there we go. So we want to set our match range. We're going to go from 20 through to, how far down do we want to go? Maybe down to 300. Let's try that. Okay, the other thing that we want to do is see if we can lift this little end a little bit. So I'm just going to go into this and I'm going to try a low shelf filter at 20 Hertz. Let's see if this works. 6 dB rise, and what has that done? Not a lot, right? Pretty much a little bit, but not a huge amount. What about if I change this to 50 Hertz? Hey, okay. But that's not exactly helping us at this end. So I'm probably just going to leave it. I don't think that low shelf is really going to help sort of push this any further. Playing down to 20 and it kind of drops off. So we're just going to EQ it all back to this, down to this line. Alright, so let's hit match response to target. And there we go. It has used up 9 EQ bands, given us a beautiful little line. There's probably a little peak here that we could just zoom in on a little bit and see if we can fix that one. But, you know, it's really nitpicking now. So 154 is close enough. I want to put in, let's say, a 2, or maybe a 3.5, 0.5, and boom, that's gone. Yeah, I'm not going to play around with any of those things. Maybe at this end, can we smooth that out a little bit? Now we're really nitpicking. 27. I'm going to add 2 and a 10. Too much. A 1 and a 10. Even that's a bit too much. 0.5 and a 10. All right. Maybe a 15. Yeah. Okay. So now we're just sort of flippy flopping around. It's made a bit of an improvement, but maybe I'll put a 5 in there. No, that's made it worse. All right. So I'm not going to bother with trying to fix that at all. It's yeah. It's. I think it's pretty fine. Like it's not even half a dB. At 26 hertz, you're not going to hear that. All right, so that's all great. I'm going to take a measurement of that, and we're going to drop that into the DSP. These filter measures. So that is subwoofer 2, and we can just do this. Boom. Cut out along level as we expected, and that is the rear subs done. You know, they're well below the 0 cutoff. Just so much energy. All right, so that is the rear sub EQ'd. Nice. And now we can get rid of that. And that's taken care of all the front end speakers. So we've got the rear sub, the front sub, the left and right mid bass, the left and right mids, and the left and right tweeters. You know, all kind of pretty well matched and playing together. And if I bring up measurement 13, which is the house curve, it's following this, you know, pretty nicely, right? The only part that's probably not following it really well is the rear sub, you know, between 20 and 10 hertz, but you know, it's just not playing that low. The only way to sort of fix that up is if I really lifted the level of the sub, you know, so this part was above the target line. But yep, I'm not going to muck around with that just yet. We certainly got enough level to kind of do it, but not going to play around with that just today. All right, so that is the front end done. Now we're going to move on and do the rear fills. Just clear everything out. So this is the house curve for the rear fills. It's set at a level of 61. That'll be our target. And we're going to work on the left and right fronts first. So there's the left and there's the right. So our target's going to be 61 on all of our house curves. So let's bring up the house curve for the front fills. Where is that? So it's just front fill full range. Must be down the bottom here. Front, here it is, front fill house curve. Fantastic. And we can now turn off that target line. And we want the front fill with the crossover, which is the left front, which is this one. Now this is all pretty well above the curve. We'd like to kick that out a little bit. So that's the left front and the right front. Yeah, okay, so let's start off with the left front first. And it looks like we're going to have to go back to the full range measure on the front, which is measurement full range front, measurement 7. And let's just check that out. Yeah, so we've got plenty plenty of room to rechange the crossover. So on the front fills, which is the left front fill we're starting with, we've set a crossover of 280 Linquist-Riley 24 dB slope. So we're going to use the full range measures to see if we can come up with a better crossover. So we can turn off 25 and just start with measurement 7, and it was for the front fills 280. Okay, let's keep that in the back of my head. So let's go into EQ. We want generic. We want where is this? 280. Yep, left front fill, full range. 280 with a LR4. Okay. And we want this one turned off. That's created the let's zoom out a little bit. Oh gosh, sorry about that, folks. Fit to data. That's a little bit better. Okay, we want this target line to be 61. Now we don't really care about the added room curve when we're doing the front fills and all that type of stuff, because the this room curve, this low frequency rise applies to, oh, have we applied it to the low frequency rise? Let me just double check that. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe we did apply it. So it should be measurement 14, which is this one here. Yeah, we have applied a low frequency rise to this, so there's a little tiny kink there. So let's be consistent and just apply that to the curve so it does match the target curve. So back into measurement 7 EQ, we are going to leave that on, and we are going to change that to 6. And then everything else is the same. So now we have the house curve set up. We can see that we need to push that out a little bit. So let's go and look at our filters, our crossovers. Now we could probably drop this down to, let's say, 200 and fix this. That would certainly help a little bit. Let's go back. We could do a LR12, that would certainly fix it. Pretty dramatic though, a lot of cutting to do there. Let's just try something else. Try a Butterworth, won't work. A bezel, not so good. I think maybe the LR12 is our best bet, even though it's cutting a lot. Let's give that a little go. And all of this is fine. I'm not going to bother trying to lift this tail end up. It's going to run up to 12,000. So our match range that we're going to use will be sort of 20 through to 12,000, or even 12,000, something like that. So let's just pop that in now. It doesn't really matter because we're just wanting the crossover. So we're just going to change our crossover in here from a 24 to a 12. And that will be that. Let's go and create that new measurement, which is down here into REW. Right down the bottom. So this is left front fill with a new crossover, which is a 280 LR2. Okay, so that can now go, whoops, where is it? To the crossover with the left front. Here it is. Good, fantastic. All right, we can close that. Now we have this new crossover. We can turn off the full range. And now we can EQ this to this new cut target curve. Once again, we can switch to, Audio Tech Fisher, 30 bands. that all stays the same. 250, 60, blah, 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 61 target. That all looks great. Let's hit match response to target and see what we get. This could be a problem here. Maybe, maybe not. And using a lot of EQ filters, but you know, that's fine. So here we go. It's used the full 30 bands of EQ, but you know, everything is within you know, pretty damn close. Yep, looking fine. All right, so that is that done. I'm going to just generate a measurement, and we're going to go into the DSP. Whoops. We're going to EQ filters into the DSP, copy those in, bang. Wow, that looks ugly, but that's what it is. Fantastic. And then we can move on to the right hand side. So let's go back into REW and change this to left front fill. Yep. Left front fill, and that is EQ'd. Lovely, you can see that there. Looking pretty good. Yep, following that along very nicely. All right, so let's move on to the right hand front fill. So I can turn the left off. Got the house curve there, and I don't need that one anymore. So the right hand front fill with the crossovers, here it is, and same problem. This end's a bit low, otherwise it's okay. So it looks like we're going to have to use a 12 again for that. So we're going to need the full range measure, which should be measurement 8. Yep. Turn that one off. Measurement 8, we can select that and just run quickly through all this stuff again. So that needs to be turned off. That needs to be set to 280 with an LR4, 6 and 61. Right, great. Pretty sure we're going to be able to use the same LR12, and yep, perfect. All right, let's go change that in the DSP. 24 and a 12. Awesome. Create a measure in here. Generate measure from predicted, which gives us our new crossover. Close that now. Into REW. Right. Oops. Right front fill. And it's going to be 280 with an LR2. And that's our new crossover for the right front fill. Oops, too far. There we go. All right, so we're now going to use that right front fill EQ. Tech Fisher, 30 bands, 280, that's all fine. Match response to targets. And let's see what we get. Just thinking, but seems to be okay. It's taking a little longer than normal. Alright, so it's once again used all 30 bands. We've got a couple of little dips here, but let's just check and see. Are they cancelled? Yeah, they're pretty deep cancellation, so I don't think we're going to worry too much about those. It's just, what are they? That's 55 versus 60. It's a 5 dB dip. Maybe we can do something about it, but we're going to have to steal some EQ bands from somewhere. And so the best way to do this is to just click on here and see what these filters are actually doing. So 2 is making a big change. 3, a bit of a change. 4, not so much. 5, yeah, pretty significant. 6, a little bit. 7, right, you just work your way through those. It's looking like number 1 is not so bad, so I might steal number 1 and use that to see if I can maybe pop that one up a little bit. So I'm going to change that to 846. Give that a bit of a boost of, let's say, 4, and we want to make that pretty sharp, so a 15. And let's see if that's actually done very much at all. Not really. So a little bit, but maybe I need to give it a bit more. Has that? Yeah, it's helped a little bit. Yeah, but like I said, cancellations are not going to respond particularly well. So will we bother to do the others? Maybe filters 28 and 29 down here seem to be kind of, yeah, they're doing quite a bit. 30's doing quite a bit. Yeah. Doesn't look like that they're all. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't think I'm going to worry about that one. Probably shouldn't even bother worrying about that one, to be honest. All right, so that's going to be our right-hand front fill, generate measurement, and we're going to go into the DSP. Got the right-hand front fill ready to go. Let's do a little copy back into there. Click and boom, there she goes. All right, so yeah, quite a lot of cutting there. Let's go into REW and see how those two things stack up. We can turn the crossover measurement off now, and now we have, what have we got? The right and the left. What is that green one? Something still turned on somewhere. We'll get rid of them all and just go 49 and 50. That's that little dip thing going on, but otherwise they're tracking along quite nicely, thank you. And if we have a look at the house curve for the front fill, boom, look at that, following that beautifully. All right, that's the front fill done, so that can now be right front fill EQ'd. Right, that leaves us with one pair of speakers to go, which is the rear fill speakers. So that's set at 300 with a 24 dB Linkwitz Riley. So once again, let's go in here. We want the front fill house curve. So sorry, the rear fill house curve. We can turn these other two off. There they go. And let's just bring up the crossovers with the rear fills in. So left rear fill with the crossover. Same story. We're going to have to change this crossover, and on the right rear it's the same. Otherwise, yeah, almost a carbon copy of the front fill speakers. And sorry guys, I'm starting to lose my voice. This being obviously quite a long video. So let's start with the left rear full range. Left rear full range, right up here somewhere. Left rear full range, measurement 9. Measurement 9. Yep, plenty of scope. So measurement 9 EQ. Do that. We know it's going to be generic. We know that this is going to be turned off, and this is going to be 300 with an LR4 like that. This is going to be set at 61 and at 6, all that usual stuff. And my guess is a 12 dB slope is going to fix all of our problems, and it does. So that's great. So predict from measurement, go into REW, change this to left rear fill, crossover at 300 with an LR2. Okay, that's good. Slide that all the way up to here with the so that's our new crossover measurement 30. We're going to go into the DSP and we're going to change the rear left differential rear fill from 24 to 12. Fabulous. Alright, so that's now done. Now we can go and do the EQ work on measurement 30. So here we go. Same process. Gets a bit repetitive after a while, but that's all fine, all good to go. Match response to target. Yep, we are using the left rear fill, so that's good. REW doing a lot of calculating. Could probably have turned the match range down a little bit, maybe down to 7,000 instead of 12. Hasn't tried to put any EQs way up here, so that's good. And yeah, that looks fine. It's used all 30 EQ bands, so not going to fiddle with that any longer. Generate measurement from predicted, go into the DSP, and we're going to drop those in. So click that and boom, that's the rear fill. And now we're going to do the right hand side. REW, this is going to be the left rear fill EQ. Bang. And there it is in green. Looks pretty good. Turn the full range measure off as well. Right. Yeah, no problems. All right. Moving on to the last of our measurements, which is going to be the right rear fill. And same. We know that the crossover is not correct. So we need to go into the full range measure, which will be measurement, full range, measurement number 10, which is the rear. So let's bring that up. There it is. All right. So EQ, it's a bit messy down this area. Maybe that will get sorted out. We'll see. So EQ generic 300 LR4. Turn this off. 256, no, 61. Bang. Let's try our little EQ filter. Pretty sure 12 is going to work for us here as well. Pretty close. Yep, 12 is going to work. It's probably going to be a little bit sure what's going on there. Maybe we can drop that down to 280. Will that help? Not really. 300. We'll leave it as 12. We can probably throw in a PK filter at 67, you know, with a 6 dB and maybe a 7, something like that. Is that actually helping that at all? Not really. Maybe a 3, maybe a 1. Yeah, okay, so maybe we do need to drop this a little bit, let's say 250. Okay, that would fix it. All right, so we're going to put a crossover of 250 in there just to get this little slope sort of fixed up. It's going to drag all this down. I'm a little bit worried about these peaks will, because that's, a 10 dB boost, and I don't think REW is going to like that very much. But as I said, we're just sort of looking at the crossovers for the moment, so I'm going to turn that off. So it's going to be a 250 LR12, not 300. So on the rear, we're going to change that to 250. Oops, 250, and a Liquid Riley 12. Okay, so we're going to go generate that measure. As always, there we go, into REW, down the bottom here, right rear fill, uh, 250, oops, crossover, 250 LR2. That can now close. You can see, there it is there. It's all fine. Right rear, there it is, like that. Fabulous. And now we're going to use this to do our EQ work. Same. Pick that. 300 LR4, that's all fine. 6661. We want to put in a PK filter. I think we said at 67, a 6 and a 1. Right, that's boosted that up. I'd also like to just see if I can lift this little low end a little bit before we run our PK filters. So I'm going to put in I'm just going to lift this up here, so at 6,290. I'm just going to put in like a 4 dB rise and put in a 1. Let's just see what that has done. So that's lifted that a bit. I'm actually going to make it a 6 because now why am I doing that? And that's because REW is going to have trouble boosting 10 dB. But if I lift it up a little bit like that, or even use a low end rise, it's going to cut all of that back and maybe get that a little bit flatter. Might even push this up a little bit. So PK, what's that, 931. Give that a bit of a boost as well and make that a 5 or something. What happens if I make it 2? Yeah, okay, that just doesn't really help. Make it a 5, that's close enough. Or I might even, put a boost in at 10K and try to lift this whole end a little bit more. So 10,000, 6, and another 1. All right, so that's lifted all these peaks, and now I've just got some little tiny boosting to be done. So that's going to help REW. Now, once again, just turn all of those off so they don't get overwritten, and let's have a crack and see how it goes. Yeah, you can see it's struggling to get these things smoothed out, but yeah, it's probably going to use all 30 bands again. And there we go. So yeah, we've still got one left over here. We don't have any bands left over, but that's not looking too bad. So I think we can live with that. Just generate a measurement from predicted. Let's go and dump this into the DSP and just make sure. Okay, so now we've got some potential overdriving problems here because we've really boosted this low end to sort of lift it up, which I'm not crazy about. So I'm going to go back and redo that because that is really driving the low end of that rear fill. It might probably be okay because we're going to run differential and we're running them at a pretty low level, but that's not what I would like to see, that overdriving so much on that speaker. So yeah, I'm going to go and redo that before we lock it in. So let's reset those measures. Let's go back into the EQ and reset all the filters. Well, actually, what I need to do is actually turn off all those filters that we've added stuff to. Doop and doop. And now reset them. Okay. And we should have all the auto EQ filters on. Yes, it looks like it. Okay, great. So I can go back in and put this little filter that we were talking about. Whoops, PK67, a 6, oops, and a 4, I think it was. No, it was a 1. Yep, okay. And I'm just going to leave that and let REW do its thing, and we'll just see how it turns out. Or you know, there we go. Rookie mistake. I forgot to turn off the auto EQ. So 6 and 1. Now let's turn off the auto EQ on that and run one more time. Yeah, it hasn't. Not sure why. Well, first of all, it hasn't used all of our 30 EQ bands, so something a bit weird going on here. Sorry guys, we're getting close to the end and it's been a very long video, but I want to make sure this is right. So I'm going to reset everything again. Just make sure that all the auto filters are actually turned on. And I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to PK67, a 6 and a 1. Right, that locks in that little guy. Everything else should be pulled down. I don't really want to boost all this because that causes the problem that we had before. So let's try matching response to target one more time. I don't think so. What REW is doing is it's struggling to deal with these boosts and this boost here, right? That's why it's only using 18 filters and it's leaving these big holes because it doesn't like. We've got our maximum boost set to 6, so that's why it's really struggling. I'm going to reset it one more time, and I am going to have to do some manual manipulation of that if I want REW to deal with it. So I promise this will be the last round. 67, 6 and 1. So we are going to have to do some manual manipulation. So that's that one. I am going to have to boost this a little bit here, 931. Try to keep it to a minimum, so 4 and 10. So REW should be able to deal with those two little peaks. Now these guys here, I don't want to push them too far. I probably need to at least give them a 4. So that's at 55150. Try giving them a 4 and a 10. Which is a pretty sharp cue. It's lifted it a bit. I don't think REW is going to be able to deal with that. So still pretty low. And this one down here, same deal. I'm going to have to lift that up. 8100, a 6, and let's make that a 5. And make this a 5 as well. Alright, so now REW might be able to deal with it. We will see. Make sure they're turned off. Match response to targets. And it's struggling, but we'll see what happens. Nope, it hasn't dealt with this one. It certainly improved these two a little bit. Golly gosh. So it's number 18, filter 18. That's the one that we need to fix, which is this one here, 931. So I'm going to make that a 6 to really lift that up, and a Q of 5, maybe 3. And now let's run it one more time and see if we can't fix that up. Maybe I should have just stuck with the original the original measurement, but yeah, it looks like REW is doing a better job of that over here now. Okay, so that's about as good as we're going to get. That's 30 bands. Let's just stick with that. It's boosted a little bit there. Maybe we're going to end up in the same place anyway. Let's have a look. Bang, and yes, we have. It is still leaving us with, well, it's improved, right? But it's still, there's still a lot of boosting on this low end. So I can either just live with that because it is going to be rear fill, but I would probably go and pull those couple of EQ filters out. And should I do that? Yes, because this is showing you how I would do things, right? So I am going to do that because I'm a bit concerned about that over boosting. So it's going to be, if I go into EQ, the way to find out which filters they are is going to be looking, here. Well, first of all, in the DSP, we're looking at the peak at around 5,100 and another peak at 8,100. So that's what we're looking for in REW in the EQ section, something around 5,100, which is going to be filter 26, 27 or 28. So let's have a look at those 26, 27 and 28. Here we are. That one's going to drop it, that one's going to drop it, and that one's going to drop it quite a lot. So we'll leave 28 in place and just turn off 27 and 26. Okay, so we just turn those both off like that. And then the other one is at 8,000, which is this 30 that we locked in. So once again, I'm just going to turn that off. So yeah, not much we can do about that. I think they're big cancellations, and putting all that energy is not probably going to help them. So let's just create a new measurement from predicted. Let's go into the DSP. Let's reset all of that, and let's transfer these, and that's looking much better. There's the zero line. Now everything is not overdriving. Yeah, much happy with that. Okay, so I'm glad I did that the right way and showed you how to sort of fix it if you come across the same problem. All right, so hey, what are we doing? We are going down to here and getting rid of that. And this is now the right rear fill EQ'd. Wonderful. All right, let's clear everything out. Let's have a look at the right rear fill and the left rear fill, and with the exception of this big peaky stuff that's here, they're pretty much following each other along quite nicely. And then the front fill, and that is also following each other really nicely. So that's great. And really quickly, the front, where's the house curve? There's the house curve for that one and the house curve for that one. Just turn those off for a second and turn him off for a second. And yeah, great. All right, so that's all of that stuff and the beautiful little house curve, and yeah, those ones as well. So looking good. Bit messy down here beyond 5,000, but that's the rear fills, not really playing any further than that. The front fills, of course, are playing way up, doing fine, and yeah, well, they should work really well. So that is the fills, and we've already had a look at the front stage. Just turn that off. But let's have a look at them anyway, because we've now done all the work. So the left tweeter, right tweeter, left mid, right mid, left mid bass, right mid bass, front sub, rear sub. Then we have our left and right front fills and our left and right rear fills. And yeah, that's with the house curve for the differential fills and the house curve for the major speakers. So that is all of the speakers now EQ'd. So yeah, it's been a super long video, guys. What I'll do now is just take you through the group results of the stuff that you guys sent me in, and we'll wrap up today's results video. Alrighty, so I just want to share with you guys the end result of your EQ work that you sent in. And I just want to show just how close you can get just by following the technique. So I didn't get a lot of results in. I think most of the people are still working through their crossovers and stuff, but certainly I wanted to share my results versus Danny's EQ results. And I think you'll be surprised at just how close these that you can do these tunes and get pretty much the same identical results. So I'm just going to clear everything out. And so my EQ, which we've just done in the video, is in blue, and here is Danny's EQ results in red. And so left tweeter and left tweeter, and you can see they are identical with the exception of a little tweak here and there, and both of them are following the house curve absolutely perfectly. So well done, Danny. And it just continues all the way through. So that's the left tweeter, the right tweeter, once again mirror image, left mid, perfect, on top of each other. The right mid, same again. Maybe not quite as clean on the slope here, but we know that we were having problems with getting the slope on the left mid, so done exceptionally well. Left mid bass versus left mid bass, same story, practically mirror images, maybe a little tweak there, but otherwise really good. Also having the same problem below 20 hertz in getting this slope to follow the house curve. That's the mid bass house curve here. Yep, so done once again exceptionally well. Then we go to, let's see, what's that? The left mid bass, the right mid bass, right mid bass. So once again, just this little area we could have done a little bit more work to sort of get that sort of straight and flat, but pretty much on top of each other. Then we have the front sub. Once again, they follow each other pretty well. Just bring up the front sub house curve. Front sub. Here it is. Yep. So probably a little bit cleaner through on the high pass here, but otherwise, they're once again pretty much a mirror image of each other. The rear sub, same result. Both following each other perfectly down this slope. I think Danny played with the levels or something here. I've just corrected them so they're following each other. But the rear sub results are the same as well. So yeah, super good. If we just quickly look at the front fills and the rear fills, so left front. This is probably where we deviated a little bit in our workings. So that's the front fill house curve. So I think Danny stuck with a 24 dB slope as opposed to trying to follow that target line down. But with that that aside, everything else is a mirror image of each other in terms of the EQ work, which that's the left front. Now we've got the right front. Once again, mirror image. That same, I did a little bit of work here to lift that low end a little bit up, but otherwise, the front slope here, but otherwise it's all matching. The left rear and the left rear, same thing. Did a little bit of work to lift this rear end, but otherwise pretty much matching. and then finally the right rears. Okay, so and I did a little bit of a lift there because REW was struggling. That's really the only difference. So I guess the takeaway is that if you follow the auto EQ techniques and and all of that type of stuff, we can pretty much get the identical mirror image EQ work from person to person. And if you have a look at, if I bring up all of Danny's EQ measurements, right? So tweeters, mids, mid bass, front subs, the rears, all of that stuff, right? And the house curves, right, to go with them. Boom, 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 boom. We've got this beautiful, they're matched, they're playing together, they're following the house curves, just really, really nice EQ work. So well done, Danny. That's a great result. So I guess a lot of people who are participating in the virtual tuning exercises are still kind of catching up on the previous week's worth of work, and particularly around the holiday seasons. I totally understand that family and holidays and and all the festivities certainly take priority. So no problems, guys. Take as much time as you need. And if you are struggling a little bit to get through everything, that's perfectly fine. We've got all the time in the world. So guys, that brings us to the end of I guess today's results tutorial. It's been a super long one. If you've watched all the way to the end, fantastic, congratulations. Next week we're going to get into time alignment, which is another very heavy topic. As always, I will send you the information email, a copy of the round 4 measurements, and the instructions and all of that type of stuff for you to do your time alignment. So thanks again for watching, fellas, and I will catch you next week with the time alignment results.